All right, Chris Chavez coming to you live from Tokyo, and I'm joined now by world championship bronze medalist Julia Paternain in the marathon. Absolutely crushed it. I think over the last 48 hours, your phone must just be blowing up, notifications nonstop, and then on top of that, just like zero sleep. I mean, how have,
Mhm.
have you have you slept much at all since the race?
I slept about 2 hours the day the race, ended, and then yesterday I managed to get some sleep, and then I've been having, random 20-minute naps here and there, which I was asleep right before this, so
Well, thank you for coming out and doing this because I think like right now there are so many people who have obviously like started familiarizing themselves with like your story and just the sheer nature of how this race unfolded, and then just your pure emotion and reaction at the finish line has just captivated thousands and thousands of people around the world. So first off, congratulations.
Thank
And
you.
I want to start off by like just kind of overall like coming into this whole entire world championships, like what were the expectations that you had for yourself
Mhm.
here?
Yeah, so I sat down with my coach, Jack, the night before the race, and we said, okay, this is like A, B, and C goal. And C goal was like, okay, let's just finish the race because the conditions are going to be hell. And you never know if, with all these championship races, there's always so many people that drop out. So we knew that was probably a factor. So just finish. B goal was okay, maybe top 20, 30, definitely top half, but around there. And then A goal was okay, top 8. But even I know when he said top 8, we kind of looked at each other like, oh man, that's wow, top 8. And so yeah, those were kind of the goals. And honestly, the whole plan was always just run my own race. And then if I can just stay true to my own race and my own process, then the kind of results will follow.
We're gonna be jumping around, I think, a little bit and just kind of going over the course of your history, both personal and at the same time, like professionally. But for you, you took to the roads really well
Mhm.
as soon as you jumped into it, and then with that first marathon that you had. I mean, did you feel after that race that it's like, oh, okay, the marathon is or has the potential to be like my specialty event, and putting the world championships on there, was that something that excited you? I think after the how well the first one went.
Yes and no. So I think a lot of people think that, oh, that first 10 miler was when I realized that I was built for the longer stuff, but I've always liked the longer things. Um, in England, you can't really run the 5K on the track until you're a little bit older. So the 3K was the main distance that was the longest, and I always did the 3K, hated the 1500. I despised the 800. I absolutely hated it. Anything remotely short, I've always disliked, and anyone that has ran with me can attest to that. And then I'm very much a rhythm runner. I don't like little obstacles on things. I'm not a fan of cross country. I like running in a straight line. I like just switching off and just running. So I always knew that I was eventually going to end up in the marathon distance. That's kind of always what I wanted to do. I just didn't know it would be so soon. I think it's pretty common, you have your track career and then you go to the marathon. But I mean, I felt ready to do it. And I felt ready for a marathon. So we kind of did that. But yeah, that 10 miler, I did 10 miler at Twin Cities. And I think I just really enjoyed it. And that was the first time in a while I had just really enjoyed racing. And then all those road races after was a fairly similar feeling. So then when I ran that the my first marathon, again, it was the same. I felt confident and in my own, and yeah, and then qualified for worlds, and yeah, here we are.
So with being like a rhythm runner and throwing yourself kind of into that classification of sorts, like when it comes to the
Mhm.
marathon, I just remember last year, in the lead up to the Paris Olympics, everyone's like, "Well, we got to get ready for the hills and at the same time be as fit as possible and
Mhm.
fast." So assessing like the Tokyo World Championship course and stuff, like
Mhm.
how did you go about preparing for this race, knowing that it was going to be hot, the potential to be fast, and like when you start hearing and seeing the names that were going to be in this, where it's like Ethiopia names Tigist Assefa to the team. It's like, oh, that's a 2:11 marathoner in the
Mhm.
field. Peres Jepchirchir from Kenya was in it, so it's like that's a championship racer there. So how did you sort of start to, the McCurdy micromarathon, awesome time trial of sorts, but then
Mhm.
this is a true race in and of
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah, so I give all credit of that to James McCuddy and Jack, my coach. They got me so ready for all of the different conditions, things that could go wrong, the course, everything. We did a lot of hilly long runs in the lead up to this. And those hilly long runs, if I live in Flagstaff, which is at altitude, if you can run those hills at altitude, you'll be okay running hills at sea level. So I was really prepared for that last 5K, which was going to be up kind of uphill back into the stadium. And then I'd been using the sauna a lot. Really do not enjoy the sauna. So that was pretty tough. But I think that helped significantly too, just getting ready for the heat and the humidity. And then thankfully the sun wasn't out on race day. And I think that was also pretty helpful because, you don't have to deal with this blazing sun in your face. But I think all of those things, and then being very prepared in terms of bottles and, knowing, okay, this is a marathon, something will go wrong. Like you might drop a bottle, you might need to stop to use the bathroom, you might need to, I don't know, retie your shoe. It's the marathon, it's a long race, but that's okay. You have time. And I think that I was just very prepared for all the chaos that would probably be happening in this race. And that really helped.
When you got here, I guess I'm trying to. I forget who I was with yesterday, or if it was with Jess or Susanna.
Mhm.
But someone I think mentioned that they were in an elevator with you or somewhere at the hotel, and they
Mhm.
came across you and they're like, "Oh, so like, how are you feeling? Like, what are your expectations?" And you were very chill about like coming into this marathon, and so you know, confidence wise and like mental headspace, like was this is your first ever time at a stage like this.
Mhm.
Some people could just be like, "Oh, happy to be here," or like
Mhm.
those tiered goals that you had. When did sort of like the competitive drive start to really kick in? Like, okay, like today has the potential to be special.
Yeah. Um, Honestly, I don't really know if it kicked in until pretty late in the race. I really was so focused on running my own race and keeping all my splits like as even as I could and just like ticking off each of those miles that I was never really thinking like, oh, let me catch this person and let me get this person. I was like, I can't control what anyone else does. Like someone else could, I don't know, surge here or surge there, or they could have the race of their lives. Like I cannot control that. So I was just trying to run my own race. And I think that also going into it, thinking of it like, well, I just have to keep doing what I have been doing leading into this because that's been working, which is, just getting in my own little planet when I run and just running. And I think that that really helped. And it also took some of the like gravity off of the race. So I didn't know I was in third. And I think that helped because if I had known, I think I would have started freaking out and being like, oh my gosh, I need to not slow down. Oh my gosh, where's the person behind me? So when I passed Susanna, I think when she was in third and I passed her, I had no idea I was passing it to go into third. So I think that that honestly helped and kind of almost like ignorance is bliss. So yeah.
What was that safe pace that like you kind of locked in at the
Hmm.
beginning that you're like, all right, if I just stay here, like, and not really cover necessarily all of these moves or anything like
Hmm.
that. What did you assess as like, okay, if I stay within this, like I'm okay. And it did
Hmm.
probably pay off because then you're just picking people off naturally in the second half.
Yeah. So I think coming into this, we knew I was significantly fitter than the last marathon, but with the conditions, we thought, okay, this will probably be similar pacing to that marathon. So that was pretty much it. So somewhere in the 5:30s. Our plan was more in the 5:40s, but it kind of I was already in like, I don't know, 50th after the race went out and I was running 5:30s. So I was like, okay, well, just gonna stay in the 30s regardless because it feels okay right now, and like I'm still pretty behind. So we'll just see how this goes. So it was around 5:35 or something like that, and I pretty much was around that for all of the miles. And I think at one point I caught the pack in front of me, and then they started surging and they started running a little faster, and I was like, I don't really want to go with that. Like we still have a while to go, and I'm really glad I didn't because I was actually with a I think it was the Finnish woman. And she was running with me and she went with me. We caught that pack and she went with that move. And then I think she ended up like that kind of that move caught up to her a little bit. And she ran a phenomenal race. She came fifth. Um, but I was kind of grateful that I just thought, okay, I'm gonna stay in the 5:30s and hopefully these people will come back to me again.
With the marathon, so many times people just think like you shut your brain off for a good majority of it, and then maybe with 10K to go, that's when you engage. But in a
Mhm.
race like this, did you have to be mentally on from the get go to make so many of those decisions?
Not really. Again, like I was just in my own little planet. I was really thinking of just get to the next bottle station. So 3 miles at a time. There was some people on the course that I would see and I kind of get distracted by that. And then I was trying to just not think almost for the as long as I could because the marathon starts to really hurt when you have like 6, 7 miles to go. So I was just trying to conserve as much mental energy as I physically could so that I had energy to use in that last part. Because I think people forget that you feel pretty good until you get to, 20 ish miles. And then you think like earlier in the race, like, oh, whatever, 6 miles in this 26-mile long race, like, is nothing. But no, those last 6 miles feel like an absolute eternity. So you need to have some kind of reserve left for that.
What was it like, I guess, then? Because I've seen on Instagram stories just sort of like the energy coming from the side of the chorus, from fans,
Mhm.
where it's like, I think at one point, like someone yelled at you, like, Slake. And then, like, you responded back. And it's like, usually you don't even see that. Like, I remember years ago, like Molly Seidel, like high fiving her sister ended up being like a big deal because everyone was like, oh, how could she expend that much energy? But for you,
Mhm.
it's sort of like you were feeding off of that.
Yeah, so I think so that was my friend Eli, and the night before the race, he texted me and he's like, "I'm gonna be on the course," and I was like, "Oh, okay, sweet." And he's like, "What should I yell at you, Slay Queen?" And I was like, "Sure, yell at me, Slay Queen, like that works." And I saw him a couple times, and I think I saw him at like 30K. And I turned to him and I like spotted him in the crowd and I was like, Slay Queen. And I think he has a video of that. And I think that just doing those things, I don't know, it takes again, like takes some of the gravity off of the race. So you can't be thinking when you're in such a long race, like, okay, I gotta be locked in. Like I need to do this, this, and this. Cause like that is exhausting. Like if you take it so seriously and are so tense for the whole race, like that, there's only so much of that that you can take. So also I think, it's a marathon and people say like, oh, you don't want to be expending energy doing things like that. But like if you're pacing the marathon right, like you should be okay for a fair amount of it. Like if you can't do those things, I think you're probably not running the right pace in the first place. So yeah.
Okay, so you heard that, but, like, nowhere along the course, I guess it's because we 'cause we're in Japan, but, like,
Mhm.
no one gave you any sort of cues as to, like, 5th,
Mhm.
4th, like,
No.
nothing. You had no idea.
So I knew, I think it was like maybe around halfway or just after half. One of the Uruguayan like team leaders who was doing the bottles, he yelled at me something like "You're in 14th or 12th." I don't remember what it was. And he yelled that to me, and I was like, "Oh, wow, okay." And then I started picking people off, and as I kind of caught people, I was thinking, "Oh, okay, that's one more down." But like I again,
You lose count.
you lose count. I'm tired. I'm not really thinking. Um, and I also didn't know those people dropping out ahead of me.
That's
So I
true.
think when I entered the stadium, I thought I was in sixth, maybe fifth, something like that. I had no idea I was in third, and I was honestly too scared to look behind me because I was like, I don't want to know if there's a pack right there because I do not want to have to sprint right now. So I was really just trying to run. And again, I know I've said it a million and one times, but run my own race. And, if someone was going to catch me at the end, so be it. But my race plan was just keep running my own race.
Because, like, you weren't, Tigist Assefa or Peres Jepchirchir, like, there wasn't as much of, like, a camera angle on you in those
Mhm.
later stages of the race, but, what are you seeing in those last couple miles when is it just pure carnage sometimes for some of those people who did, take it out way too hot? And, like, I don't know, if it was me and I'd be seeing looking over and seeing, "Oh, it's someone in a Kenya kit or an Ethiopia kit who's, like,
Mhm.
that you're passing," I would be like, "Well, that should be a good sign of, like, how far
Mhm.
up I am." So, what were you seeing along the course at that point?
Yeah, I think it was maybe 10K to go. I ended up finding myself near the car with the camera and it's like filming. I'm like, okay, this has to be a good sign because like they're usually at the front. They're not going to be filming someone that's like further back. So I remember they were like with me for a while, which honestly was kind of difficult because the car was blowing like hot fumes at you. I think I heard Jess say that in one of her interviews too. And you're like, okay, this is really hot. And now I'm getting this compounded with these like fumes that I'm having to run with. But I knew that when I was near that camera, I was like, okay, this has to be a good sign. And then I passed, I believe it was a woman from Kenya around then. And then it took a while for me to pass, to catch Susanna. But she held pretty strong when I went past her too. Like I feel like she came with me for a bit. There was also a lot of very tight hairpin turns. So there was like 6 turns where you could really kind of gauge a little more where you were at. But the thing is the last 5K into the stadium, there's no more of those turns. So earlier in the race, it was easier to kind of figure out where you were. But as the race went on, I had no idea because I wasn't able to see people coming, in the other direction to me. So yeah, it was I wouldn't say it was carnage in front of me because everyone was pretty spread out, but yeah, it was definitely, I don't really know what I was thinking. I was also just in a lot of pain and trying to make sure I didn't stop. So,
Where was that pain or like that fatigue at that point? Just, I mean,
mhm.
easy enough to say, just like your legs, but like in general, like, was there anything else?
No, I think it was mainly my legs and I just really wanted to stop. It wasn't even like one particular thing. I remember the other marathon I did, it was my calves. They were like seizing up. And I was just scared my legs were going to give way in that marathon and I wasn't going to make it. With this one, I remember with 3 miles to go until 2 miles to go, I was in a lot of pain and I was like, this needs to be close to being done. And I was so scared that just like kind of subconsciously, I was just going to stop almost like without even being able to control it. So I just started counting in my head and I'm like, okay, the time will pass. Like, so I was just like counting to 10 again and again and again. And then the time kept passing. And then I was like, okay, I just have to get back to the stadium. I just have to get back to the stadium. And then there was a pretty big hill and I was like, okay, well, it's a good sign I'm going up a hill because I know the hills are at the end of the course. So I'm almost there. And I remember getting up that hill and I was like, okay, this is the last hill I have to run for a while because I know I get a 2-week break after this. So yeah, those were pretty much my thoughts throughout.
How did you feel? I guess like, well, first there's like that crazy ramp that you have to go down to get
Hmm.
onto the track, and then
Yeah.
onto the track itself. Is it kind of funny because then you could see the finish line on
Uh-huh.
the other side. Emptying the tank at that point, like, was that just sort of like, all right, it is what it is. Like, I'm just gonna face seeing the result, and it might be fourth, fifth, sixth, whatever it was. Like,
Mhm.
what were you thinking? I guess now that once you got into the stadium.
Yeah, so I hit that ramp and I remember being like, "Oh my goodness, thank goodness this is downhill." Because I was like, "Okay, I can breathe for a second." So I remember that very clearly. And then there was a lot of people cheering and clapping and like in the little tunnel, which was nice, but it was also like it was pretty quiet just before the stadium, which was actually very refreshing. Because you kind of tired and people are screaming at you and everything. And so it was nice to have a little bit of silence before going into the stadium. And then I got into the stadium, and again, I really wasn't thinking like what position I was. Like as when I kind of went in, I was like, I just have 200 meters left, and then I can stop running. And I did that 200, and that's when I started looking around, and I was like, hang on a second, what is happening here? And then I was really just concerned that that wasn't the finish line. So that was my main concern is I thought I had this is, you're tired, it's the end of the marathon. I thought I had 2 laps around the track and I also wasn't sure if that was the finish or it was the next 200 was the finish. And so I'm like, I have seen so many videos of people stopping in a race and then they get caught at the end because they stop and they think this is the finish and they have another lap to go. It's like, I don't want to end up on no context track because, I got confused where the finish was. So I was trying to ask one of the camera officials, and that's what I'm pointing at. I'm like, is this the finish? And he's just sat there staring at me. And I'm like, yes, no, like, please, I want to stop running. And so Then I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure this is the finish. And then I looked to the other side of me, and then that's when all the photographers were there, and someone was like, "You got bronze," and I like put the three fingers up, and I was like, "Huh?" And just like, "What do you mean I got bronze?" And then I'm just looking around like, what is happening? Like, what is going on? Like, I still also was a little bit scared that wasn't the finish. So it's like I don't quite want to stop and relax yet. But those were kind of all my thoughts in that last part.
Do you black out at that point, or then just like is it just like a huge adrenaline energy rush that comes after, exhausting yourself?
Yeah, I just was in so much disbelief, and I just also again was in so much pain and just wanted to stop. So I think the sheer relief of being like, okay, I don't have to keep running anymore. That was what I was thinking. And then I was just in shock, and I was like, there's no way this just happened. Like I truly was just looking around like, I don't understand. Like, someone please just confirm this is like actually happening right now because I cannot believe this.
They hand you the coolest thing I think that World Athletics has done in recent years at these World Championships is handing people the medals immediately after.
Mhm.
So then once you got it, like that's when you know for sure, like, oh, this
Yeah.
is for real. Then I think like you were just running around. There's a video I think of like the Uruguay's like
Yes.
national
Mhm.
press team or whatever it is, like celebrating you in that moment. So like what's that been like, I guess now, just like the wave of excitement for you? We put up like a graphic and instantly it's all the pro runners who have interacted with you in some way, shape, or form, whether it was in like your NCAA career or in Flagstaff on a run, like
Mhm.
everyone immediately just started celebrating. And so
Mhm.
for you to be at the center of it, like what's that like to receive all of that at once, like this huge wave?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it has been crazy. I my phone has been just blowing up, and it's just been insane. The amount of like messages and everything, it's been, yeah, a lot, but it's meant a lot. I've had so many people reach out to me, and it's just been really cool to feel so supported and have so many people cheering for me. And yeah, it's been great to feel like I've kind of made some form of a difference, and provided an example for a lot of like younger girls in Uruguay that they can go run, they can do it. So that's been really special, just having people reach out, showing how much it meant to them, and just like even random strangers that I don't know saying that they cried watching me finish, and I'm like, oh wow. um so yeah, that's been just absolutely insane. And I just am so grateful that I have so many people in my corner that get to celebrate this with me.
Yeah, it's obviously Flagstaff claims you, Uruguay claims you, the UK claims you, but how do those, kind of three different pockets of fans like differ and sort of like and how do you kind of hold them close to you as sort of like the different parts of your life where you've developed one, as a professional runner and
Mhm.
growing up, family, all that kind of stuff. So it's like how has sort of the reception how different are those three?
Yeah. That's a good question. So I think with the UK, it's been a lot about like how I was in the athletics community growing up and everything, and how I ran at English schools, which is like our version of nationals, whatever, when you're in high school. And how that helped me develop. And so it's been a lot of like reminiscing almost on the past, which has been pretty nice. And it makes me feel nostalgic. And then back in Flagstaff, that's just like my friends that are just really happy for me, and I can't wait to get back to see them all and celebrate with them. And then with Uruguay, it's funny because it's like the messages. There's a slogan in Uruguay, and it's Uruguay no más, and it's like what everyone is just spamming my comments with, and it means like it's almost like a way of saying like this is Uruguay, like this is quintessentially Uruguayan. And it's just amazing. I've had so many, I've had some caricatures being like sent to me of myself. I've had all these like funny Photoshop things, just like of Uruguayan, like things that are very special in Uruguayan culture. Like there's a small kind of theme park almost that's in the capital that I grew up. That was like my childhood. Like I loved going to that. It had like bumper cars and everything. And in one of my interviews after, I mentioned that park about like how growing up I always went to that. And someone made like a graphic of like me with one of the rides from the park, like when I'm pointing at the finish line. Instead, they like added the ride from the park that I'm pointing at. So that's just been great. And yeah, it's been really cool. And I had Suarez comment on one of my
Oh,
Instagram
wow.
posts, which my family are big soccer fans, big Suarez fans. So my parents were like freaking out about that. They're like, no way did Suarez just comment. I've had the president from Uruguay reach out to me. I met
Wow.
the Uruguayan ambassador that's in Japan this morning. So it's been absolute insanity. It seriously does not feel real.
When's the last time that you were back there?
I was there in January of, so this, not the January just gone, but the one before.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've seen just sort of like the videos of Luis Grijalva going back to Guatemala and being treated like a national hero there.
Hmm.
And same thing, anytime a Kenyan does anything in track and goes
Hmm.
back, and there's just like a parade at the airport and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, have you thought about like, hey, maybe it's time to book another trip out there and, really, give this back to the people too?
Yeah, definitely. I do want to get back out there. The reason I haven't, so I used to go every year growing up. We went for all of like Christmas and New Year's. We would spend there, which was really nice because it's summer there. So like growing up in England when it's cold and miserable, and I'd be like, ha, I get to escape to the sun right now. um, but the flights there is just like it is a long trip to get there. There isn't really a direct flight. So when I was living in California, it would take, I think when we did it 2 years ago, it took 36 hours total to get there.
Wow.
So it is long. So it's really hard on not only your body, but just trying to schedule it and everything. And they're like when they're on vacation is different to when I'm like on vacation when I was growing up in school.
Uh-huh.
So we wouldn't want to go, and like my cousin, for example, would be locked up in school all day because like I want to go see my cousin. So we want to make sure that we could time it right. So I definitely do want to go back at some point. It's just a matter of figuring out how to get the flights and figure all that with the logistical stuff, but definitely do want to go back soon.
I think about just sort of you coming through like after the race, yes, fully exhausted, then just the rush of emotion, but then having to do interviews. Like you yesterday had to probably switch between English and
Mhm.
Spanish constantly, like as if to that would get you tired mentally
Oh,
too.
yeah. Yeah, I was actually, yeah, I think I had double the amount of interviews because I had to do,
Yeah.
all the ones in Spanish and all the ones in English. Also, like, I do speak fluent Spanish, like, I am bilingual, but it does, like, my brain, it thinks in English. So it does still take a little bit for me to get the words right in Spanish, and also just the switching. Like, it's fine when I go to Uruguay and I'm immersed there and like I'm only speaking Spanish, then it gets easier as it goes on and I start thinking in Spanish too. But when you have to keep switching like instantly, it is exhausting. And this whole experience has actually been pretty fun because like my coach speaks English, but the Uruguayan Federation team, like that's here, they all speak Spanish. So I have been a little translator in
Oh, it's
between.
exhausting.
So
I've done that on trips before too. Yeah.
and like also for the bottles, for example, the bottles are like a crucial part of the marathon. And, my coach is having to talk with the people on the Uruguay staff that only speak Spanish, and they're having to like talk to each other about like where they're going to be for the bottles. And then I'm trying to translate, add in the fact that we're in Japan.
Yeah.
So, the instructions from the officials are also slightly confusing too. So that has been a whirlwind, and that has been, yeah, pretty exhausting too.
So one of the interviews I saw, like I guess from Instagram that you did was with Paula Radcliffe, right?
Yes.
Icon of the sport.
Uh-huh.
Then you even shouted out just sort of in one of the interviews, just like looking up to Molly Seidel and what she did, like
Mhm.
in the Olympics here. So I guess like who were some of the inspirations for you? I guess growing up, and even just sort of like as you have started to pursue your own sort of like professional running
Mhm.
career.
Yeah, so I was such a like fangirl yesterday because yeah, Paula reached out to me and I was like, no way, did Paula Radcliffe just send me a message? Um, I grew up absolutely idolizing her. So as soon as she reached out to me, I was like, sure, I'll meet you, like sign me up. So that was really, really cool. And I looked up to her a lot. And then honestly, when I throughout my career at Arkansas, I had a fair amount of injuries, and I remember really looking up to Emily Infeld,
Mm.
which was cool because I got to meet her in Flagstaff not that long ago. But I always thought that her kind of comebacks from her injuries was super inspiring, and she kind of stuck with it. and seeing her win at the champs and USA's was awesome. So she is definitely another person I really looked up to. And then honestly, just like the people around me in Flagstaff, everyone is so driven and they work so hard. And I think just being surrounded by, all of those people. And I think that's been pretty inspiring too.
When you bring up like your collegiate career, I guess like that's one thing that probably a lot of people were wondering. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
it's like, well, she was never like an NCAA champion or had
Yeah.
like tons of success at the NCAA level. You even mentioned just sort of like taking that year in California, I think it was,
Mhm.
like to just sort of like take a little bit of a break from running and then finding it again.
Yeah.
And so when you made that trip out to Flagstaff to, visit Chrissy Gear and then
Yeah.
kind of started to connect with this whole side of the sport, I guess what were you telling yourself at that point of sort of like what you wanted to get out of the sport and taking that leap to pursue it professionally?
Yeah. So I think so. Was in California, and that was after being in the NCAA. And I have always like loved the sport. I have always kind of followed, the track meets. Even when I like, if I was injured, I still wanted to watch the meets. Like I've always been a big fan of the sport. So I think that I knew I wanted to work within running in some capacity too. So I explored the agency route, and I thought I wanted to be an agent. And I was really interested in sports business. I had internships with different like sports companies, and that was kind of what I wanted to do. So I was like, well, regardless of whether I'm running or not, that's what I am interested in. So being in Flagstaff, I got to like, just be so immersed in the running community. And that's what I really missed when I was in California, because when I was in California, I felt just so like disconnected from the running world. Cause, I was working for the West Coast Conference. I had an internship there, but I was doing like the basketball coverage. And I'm like, I don't care about basketball. Like, I care about track. And, and so then when I got to Flagstaff, and again, I'm surrounded by all these people that are so like-minded, which I absolutely loved. And then just like being able to go for a run and socialize while going for a run, I thought was awesome. And so I just absolutely loved it there. And then I started racing, and I never really thought about running in terms of like a monetary, I'm not sure how
Yeah.
you say that word, thing. It was always like, regardless if so I had a job when I went to Flagstaff, but it was remote. So I was always like, well, I just want to run regardless of whether I'm financially supported or not. Like if I have to wake up early in the morning, so be it. Like run before work or after work, whatever, like I'll make it work. Um, and I always just kind of wanted to get the best out of myself. And then the contract kind of came along the way, and I was like, oh wow, this is actually happening. And it kind of snowballed from there.
Yeah. So now, you're forever going to be introduced on the starting line of a race as like world championship bronze medalist. And it could change a lot of things, right? Like going forward, probably appearance fees to show up to these
Hmm.
races, world marathon majors, and like the spotlight is even bigger. But for you, what are some of the important things that you kind of want to set for yourself? Like,
Hmm.
even though the spotlight is getting brighter and you have so many more eyes on you, but keeping it sort of still fun and as normal as possible? Like, what are some of those things?
Yeah. So I think yeah, I guess I want to enjoy it right now in this moment, obviously. And then being in Flagstaff is kind of great because you're surrounded by so many other people that have, such high accomplishments and everything, that like you go to Flagstaff and you're just like another one. Like it doesn't really matter. So I'm kind of excited to go back and just kind of be me again, I guess. But yeah, I think in moving forward, I have no idea like what the next few races will consist of. I have to get three of my wisdom teeth out next week, so
Wow.
that's next on the agenda. But I think that moving forward, I would really like to just set more PRs. I think that's what really drives me is like I like those kind of more time trially races and just like seeing how fast I can run and seeing what I can get out of myself. So I would really like to run a faster marathon and then a faster half, and then eventually maybe do a 10K and hopefully like set some PRs on the track. But I just kind of want to see what I can do and just go from there.
Yeah, I feel like London will come calling in the spring, but yeah, I mean, the door's not closed to a return to the track.
No, I wouldn't mind going back to the track. I like the track. I despise cross country, but
Okay. So no world
yeah.
cross.
I don't think so. We were considering it, but it's not fun for me. I don't like running on grass. I never had a good time whenever it was NCAA cross. It was just not it. Um, I do like the track. The 10K and the 5K, I would definitely do them again. I still haven't broken 16 officially on the track, so I would like to do that. I think I set a 5 and a 10K PR in like a race that we did leading up to this race, like a random like road race. So I would like to officially fix that PR, but yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to going back to the track.
Awesome. Well, we're looking forward to it. You've got so much, just bright stuff ahead in the future, and this performance is definitely one of the most memorable ones of the World Championship so far. And congratulations once again, and so excited to see what the future holds for you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Perfect.